of the internet, I'm Scott with Serkworks Art Labs. Welcome, mad creators, to the underground laboratory where together we're going to create some awesome comics, because this is Making Comics 101 and this is a bonus issue. This week we are talking about publishing, and a big part of publishing is making sure that you have everything set up correctly and ready to go to the printer. So I received a question asking, well, what size do you usually draw your comic book at? And I was thinking, well, that's a good question, but it's also a hard question to ask, and probably the reason why originally I wasn't even going to cover this, because there really isn't a standard size to draw your comic book at, you know. And also we have to consider that the comic book format varies from place to place. A manga comic has a different dimension as an American comic has a different dimension than a lot of European comics. So you have to take that into consideration. So for this particular episode, I'm just going to concentrate on the standard American format, and then we'll kind of get into what you should draw at. It's really up to you. I mean, you can draw at any size you want. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that when I talk about these sizes, here in America, where I'm living, we don't use the metric system, which pretty much everyone else in the world uses. So when I say, you know, I work at like 11 by 17 inches, that might get confusing to anyone that's not in America. So anyway, so yeah, let's kind of get into it. So now, like I said, you can draw at pretty much any size you want. My friend Joshua Kimball, he draws on these giant, just massive pages that are I don't know, he gets these giant pieces of Bristol, and he prefers to work really, really big. He kind of, also another person that works really big would be like Chris Ware, and Josh is a big fan of Chris Ware, so he probably says, well, I gotta work at least as big as he does. So anyway, but then again, there are some people that work smaller. So again, I work at 11 by 17, which if I was gonna say the most common size for people to draw American comic books at, it would be 11 by 17 inches, and in centimeters, that's 28 by 48 centimeters. So that most people work with those. If you find predefined, and we'll get into some of these predefined page layouts or paper that you can draw on, most of them are set at around 11 by 17. But I don't want you to think that that's the size you have to draw out. It's all up to you. I was watching Cartoonist Kayfabe. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that. If you aren't, you definitely should check it out. But it's hosted by Jim Rugg and Ed Piskor, and Ed Piskor is the author of Hip Hop Family Tree, if you're familiar with that. And recently he's working on this new project called Red Room, his current comic, and he made the switch to draw. I assume before he was probably drawing like an 11 by 17. I'm not exactly sure, but he went to more, almost, I think it's closer to and I'm sort of paraphrasing, so I don't remember exactly, but from what I understand, he kind of made the switch to something closer to actual size, and he said it cut a lot of production time off, you know, his comic making process. So that's the way to go. Now, the reason a lot of people do work larger is because when you do that, once it's reduced, it does seem to clean things up a little bit. You don't see any of the glaring errors, or as much of the glaring errors. If it's super glaring error, you're going to see it. So I shouldn't say glaring, but anyway, so yeah, reducing your artwork, most people do work larger, so then when they reduce it, it just cleans it up a little bit. And like I said, I do work a little bit larger. I just kind of go with the standard because it's just easy to find paper at that size and everything. The other advantage to working at 11 by 17 or 28 by 43 centimeters is that is about the size, it's about the biggest size that a sort of a standard scanner can scan at. So yeah, I mean, you still need a sort of a large size scanner, but anything bigger than that, they're hard to come by, and then you have to splice everything together if you're working even larger than that. So I usually tend to stick with 11 by 17, and it's a standard, you know, it's a standard page size. It's also known as tabloid size. If you're ever looking for paper, if you look for tabloid size, that's 11 by 17 inches. So anyway, so let's get into this. I want to show you some of this stuff here. And also, we have to mention that, you know, if you're working digital, a lot of this, some of this is irrelevant. Some of it, you know, it's, I mean, you still have to set things up, and with there, you're dealing with pixels and everything. You can still set things up in inches, which I do just because I'm familiar with. I still don't totally understand the conversion, but it's easy to convert using digital. And lately I'm doing a lot of digital stuff, but I'm going to stick with mostly traditional for this sort of demo, what I'm going to show you here. All right, so first of all, I want to show you some of the papers that you can get. Now, some of these are old. This is a blue line paper. It's just a standard blue line. I used to use these a long time ago, and they're not very good. So I don't recommend this. Now, again, I used this a long time ago. Maybe they've improved their paper. I don't know. You might have to do research on that, but I'm just kind of showing you some. I just kind of pulled out some of the different paper that I have. So the problem with this is it just. It's a little flimsier. It seems to, the paper seems to wear away if you do a lot of erasing, or, you know, so I wasn't a fan of this. They do have a Blue Line Pro, and I don't like this either. I mean, it's I don't even think it's because it's that old, but it's a little, the color you can see is a little different. I like this. I like more of a kind of bleached white look. It's thicker paper, but this is like a super smooth page, and I don't particularly like working smooth. Some people may, especially inkers sometimes, because their ink might glide a little more on a really smooth page. Also known as like a hot press would be like a smooth finish, or a vellum, some people call it vellum. Cold press is more, has a little more tooth to it, and that's what I prefer. But also this when I used to use this, if you do a lot of erasing on this, it would also eat the stuff up, and I'm not a big fan of this either. Again, they could have changed this because I haven't used this stuff in like decades. That's how long. So what I use now typically are, I kind of go back and forth between a few different brands, but one would be Strathmore. So Strathmore makes a great paper. They make pre-rolled paper. Let me show you. So I'll show you this here. So I don't know if I can fit the whole thing here in under the camera, but I'll try to do my best. So this is the Strathmore Bristol, the pre-ruled and everything. It's got all the rules, and I will go into what these different rules mean and everything, and how to pay attention to all that. But you can kind of see, unless they've changed this, you know, it's got a kind of a Katie Cook illustration on here on the front. I don't know if this is still the way they're selling it. I bought a whole bunch of these when I sell, so I still have some. And lately I've been using some of my own stuff, so, but that's where you can get that. It's pre-rolled. Strathmore also has this Strathmore Bristol. It's the same size, 11 by 17, and this is a Dave Peterson illustration. So these are comic book artists that you may be familiar with. He does like Mouse Guard and everything. But if you can find this is pretty much the same thing, only it is not pre-ruled. So if you want to rule your own, and I actually, you know, if you're familiar with my Comic Maker Starter Kit or the Comic Maker Toolkit, Comic Maker Starter Kit is free to download from my website, and it has pre-rolled pages, so you can get these, and assuming that your printer can handle it and send these through, send the pages through, then you can use those, and you can print your own templates on here. So you can go that route as well. The other paper that I recommend, and I may even like it a little more than Strathmore, but only a little. I mean, they're pretty close, and that is the Canson paper. So Canson kind of looks like this, and so yeah, I think I may have. Yeah, there might be a sheet in here, but anyway. So, and this Canson is pre-rolled, rule 2, and again 11 by 17. Or is that what I said before? Because this is, I think that's different than what I said, but 27, it looks like 0.9 centimeters by 43 centimeters. So, oh, and also the weight and everything is listed on here. Now, in addition to that, I got, this is a recommendation I got a while back from Jake Parker. I think this is what he uses, but this is just 11 by 17 copy paper. Let me show you this. This is, it's Hammermill digital color copy digital cover. So cover paper, and then here, so again 11 by 17. It's 80-pound paper, so it's not super heavy, but it's really nice. It's got a nice finish. So I use these. This is actually, and it goes through the printer really well. So this is what I print my, a lot of my pages on. So those are some different options there. So as I mentioned, you can draw at pretty much any size you want. That's not the important thing. There is something important that you have to remember, and that is not necessarily the size, but the proportions. So a standard American comic book is 6 by 5/8 inches by 10 by 1/8 inches. In centimeters, that's 16.8 by 25.7 centimeters, I believe. But anyway, you can, if you just compare, you get a regular, you can even take a regular comic book and just place it down and just draw those dimensions out if you aren't sure. But the most important thing is that you just are working the correct proportions, because say if your comic book, if you're drawing larger or whatever and it's a little bit wider, once you reduce that, it's not going to work. It's not going to line up. It's kind of the same situation that when you used to watch movies in the theater before they had widescreen TVs, and then you end up watching them on TV. They'd have the letterbox. It's the same thing. If you're not working at the right portions, you're probably gonna have space on the side, extra space on the side or on the top. So you wanna make sure that no matter what size you're working at, you're working on the right proportion. But I wanna show you a little trick. It's really easy to figure out, so you can draw it pretty much any size you want. So you've got this, you see that? So we've got this square here. I'm gonna kind of flip it on its side. I got a ruler here. Now I am just gonna line the ruler up here with the corner here and the corner here. All right, just make sure that lines. I'm going to get my ruler here, and then I'm just going to draw a diagonal line all the way up here. You see that? All right, so now once I extend all these lines here, is this in the frame? I don't know if that's in the frame, but let's see. All right, let me move this over. So say if I want to draw not 11 by 17, a little more, let me get out my, all right, so I got my rolling ruler. This will make it a little easier. All right, so I'm just putting this here. Now if I want to draw it this size here, I just draw a line over to here to here. All right, so here to here. And then let me get my other ruler to kind of extend that out. All right, so you can go all the way up here to more like 11 by 17. Of course, you can measure this out on the side with your ruler and all that stuff too. But here, it's going to make sure that no matter what size you're working at, you're working in the correct proportion. All right. So once this is reduced, it's going to line up. You're not going to have any extra space on the side or the back. So just a little trick, a little hack for you guys. All right, so this is a page that I printed out from my Comic Maker Starter Kit. I actually increased the darkness of this blue. It's actually a little lighter blue, so it is non-repo blue, so it's not going to photograph and everything. But I just wanted this to be a little clearer so I can show you what some of this stuff means. A lot of the standard comic layouts are similar. But like I said, this one you can download for free if you go to my website, serkworks.com. It's part of the Comic Maker Starter Kit. So what we have here is we've got our trim lines off here. So basically what that is you're going to want to extend, if you're working with a bleed, and what a bleed is, if you've seen comics where, and most comics are this way, where if any artwork goes off the page, it's going to need to extend past this trim area, because that's pretty much where it's going to trim. And it can be a little bit off one way or the other. So you want to make sure that's what this border out here past the trim area, you probably want to make sure it goes at least to there. Just if there's any shifting or anything like that. So that's where you want your artwork to go past if it bleeds. Now some comics don't bleed. Some comics, the panel borders, everything stays within the panel borders, and that's fine too. So, but that's what that trim area is, if you go past that for your bleed. Now right here you've got the live area or the safe area, and you can see where this actually will line up if you pull these across in this window here. This is your safe area within these live crop marks here. So what this is, you probably want to keep your panels inside this border, and you definitely want to keep any fonts, any type, any important information should stay in this safe area. Anything that goes beyond there could get cut off. So if it's not as important, if it's just like a background that's going to extend out, that can go past here for the bleed. But there's like an important character, or like I said, if you've got panels, I usually try to keep most of my panels within this safe area, unless it's a panel that is intended to also bleed off the page. And I do that quite a bit anyway. But anyway, so that's pretty much the anatomy. Now, these little marks off to the side, all these are you know, they kind of help you when you're laying out your page. So if you've got a ruler here, because a lot of times, sometimes, like I said, I'll use my rolling ruler. If for some reason I don't have that or whatever, I can use these as sort of eyeball. Like I can look between here and here, and I can tell if that, I can say, oh, that's a little bit off. But I can pretty much eyeball it using these guides. If these guides weren't here, it's a little harder to tell to make sure all your lines are correct. So that's what these little lines, and they go both vertically and horizontally. And then down here at the bottom is instructions if you want to put together a double page spread. And then up here, of course, just all your information, your title, your issue, your page, your date, the artist, and then some more information where it says it prints at 76% or 67%, and then, you know, it's basically tells you a little bit, pretty much what I was saying just now as far as keeping everything inside the safe area and bleeding things off. But yeah, so that is pretty much the anatomy of a comic book page, a pre-printed comic book page. Like I said, if you're working digital, and these are available for digital, you can pull these right up in, you know, Photoshop, Illustrator, Clip Studio, Paint, or any program. There's PNG versions where you can pull them up in any program, GIMP, or whatever you're using to illustrate your comic, you can use the PNGs for. So yeah, those are all available in the Comic Maker Starter Kit, and that's, I just wanted to kind of show you that, show you the tip as far as, you know, drawing that diagonal line. So, and just make sure you know that you can work at whatever size. If you want to work larger than this, smaller than this, just make sure your proportions are correct. That's the most important thing. And with having said that, that's pretty much all I have to say. Oh, there is one other thing. If you are working digital, you want to pay attention to your DPI or PPI, dots per inch or pixels per inch. Probably want to keep that. If you are working 11 by 17, I think 300 is fine because you're still working larger than the actual page. If you're working more of a actual size, you know, probably go with more of a 600 DPI. You can go as high as 12. Back in the days, I kind of didn't get in the habit of working at 1200 DPI because although it's crisper, clearer, and everything, it used up. I mean, it made the computers run pretty slow. Nowadays, computers are a little bit faster, but I think if you're working 11 by 17, 300 DPI is good. If you're working at more actual size, 600. But that's kind of up to you. Just don't go below 300 DPI. Even if you're a webcomic artist, I know screen resolution is roughly what, 72 DPI or whatever, but you never know, you know, what you're going to want that artwork for. If you ever look at old websites, or I can go back and look at some of my digital artwork, early digital artwork, and then I try to bring it up and it is like super small, because back then, you know, you just didn't deal with large file sizes like that. So even if you're a webcomic artist, you want to work at print resolution because you may want to make prints of your webcomics or whatever the case is. So I would say even if you're a webcomic artist, still go at a high resolution around 300 DPI, 600 DPI, depending on the size you're working at, compared to the actual, what would be the printed size, or the size you're publishing at if you're working digital. So yeah, so now that is all I think I have to say. If you guys have any questions that I didn't cover or anything, let me know. But yeah, that's going to do it for another issue. I will see you guys later, and that is all. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Also, you can follow me at Serkworks on social media, and now you can support the work that I do on Patreon. Do you like making comics? Then go to Serkworks.com and pick up the Comic Maker Starter Kit. It's packed full of fonts, brushes, templates, and more. And best of all, it's totally free.